This is the magic of you on 105.9 Seaside FM.
Welcome back to our last half of The Magic of You for Tuesday, the 8th of March. In studio with us is Ken Penrose, and we're talking about grieving and the need to grieve and not be stoic and tuck those feelings away. We are going through a list of popular misconceptions about grief and loss, and the last on this list, if you just keep busy, your grief will go away. Gosh, can you imagine? It's just, it's silly to think. But
it's so common, though.
It is.
People are truly convinced if you just don't give yourself time to think about it, it'll go away, but it doesn't go away unless you deal with it.
And then you end up, as you mentioned earlier, you're in your second year experiencing the emotions of the first year loss.
Precisely.
It's kind of like a Newfoundland thing where they say, pay me now or pay me later.
Yeah, you got the choice, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Now, let's go to some true statements about grief and loss. You can enjoy a full life after a major loss of any kind.
Absolutely. I really believe that. And a point does come when it's really healthy and appropriate to let go of our attachment to the lost loved one and to carry on and finding new meaning in life. I was delighted after really doing the grief work myself, I think pretty well, to find I would have moments. It didn't last for long, but I began to have moments of profound joy and delight just in being alive and appreciating nature and the environment and so on. And then, of course, I'd slip back, but that was the beginning of a whole new transformation for me. And I'm sure it came from doing the work that I did. And so it's just meant a whole new life for me.
Now, listening to what you're saying, I can view things differently.
Yeah. Well, the wonderful thing is by doing the work that I've been talking about, then I no longer, when I reflect and think about Marg, I don't think about the pain doesn't come up anymore because I worked that through. So what's there is the love we had and have. We continue because she's there on the other side, and we'll continue to be able to relate forever. So it's a delight to be able to have that. Certainly it's not physical, but it's the next best thing to have that, that strong feeling of connection to her and the strong feeling of love.
Exactly, and I love it when you can get to that point. I mean, it can take a long time or a short time, but that's always, I do like that point. What do we have here? It takes time to be healed from grief, and it also takes lots of hard work. Well, we certainly have said that, haven't we?
Yep.
The better your relationship with one who has died, the more satisfying your grief work will be.
Exactly. Because some people feel, well, it's probably better not to get close, and then I won't feel the pain as much. But you suffer both ways with that point of view. So it's better to go for it full tilt and then experience the connection afterward that will always be there.
Many people can help you work through your loss, especially others who have had similar losses. Gosh, thank goodness for those people, right? Regardless of where we are in life and what we're going through, to know that there's support out there of people in the same situation.
Exactly. It's such a relief. It is.
While you may experience anticipatory grief in a slow death, later grieving the ultimate loss can be just as difficult as dealing with a sudden death.
Yes, it doesn't make sense, but it's true. Logic would have it that you're not going to have as difficult a time, but so often you go through it just the same as anyone who maybe didn't have as much notice that their partner or their loved one was going to die, but you still have to go through it. Yep.
I think in my experience, it's just with a slower death, you have the chance to say your goodbyes. You have your chance to sort of tidy things up versus that unexpected death where, you don't get to do that.
Exactly.
And I think coming from a family, let's give a scenario. Let's say a dad passes away. Sometimes I think the mom may expect the children to grieve exactly the way that she grieves.
Yes.
And I would think people grieve differently.
Oh, boy, do they ever. And it's led to so many bitter disputes that I've been involved in with families where people don't grieve the same way, so therefore their way of grieving doesn't measure up. They're not doing it right.
Yes.
So they get really put down and discounted, and so it's so sad because men particularly often grieve in different ways. They like to work on projects for their lost loved one, doing physical things or going for walks. Men like walking grieving groups, where they're doing something physical. They're walking, but they're sharing their loss while walking, whereas they find it hard just to sit without moving in a group for a couple of hours.
And so, how do you work with, let's say there's a family, let's say we have that scenario, let's say dad dies and, mom grieves by perhaps, sitting and holding on to his clothes and grieving that way, while maybe a daughter or a son may act out.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that happens all the time, and it leads to such friction. So, the only thing that I can suggest is that people are open to it, understanding, or having a basic understanding of the different ways we grieve can lead to some relief from that, some greater acceptance of our differences. Mm-hmm. But if there's no way to provide some understanding, then their way of grieving just doesn't cut it, and so you have all these problems.
And it sets up dissension, I would think.
I should say, really.
Because then it's, you didn't love him, and you're not grieving, and whatever it may be. And the child may be saying, just move on, Mom, get over it,
Exactly.
Get rid of all of his clothes and just move on.
Oh.
Speaking of that, Holly, I was going to get into myths of grief and mourning. And the first point here, you'll be over your grief in 6 months to a year. Get over it.
Get over it. That's the most common phrase, get over it.
Yeah.
Oh, how about this one? If you feel crazy, that means you are.
But talking about getting over it, I want to stop there for one moment and come back to that for a moment. So let's say, Ken, we're talking about somebody that has lost somebody, say 5 years ago, and they still feel like they have not moved on.
That does happen. And I recall doing a couple of bereavement groups where people came into the group at year 5, year 7, and year 10, mm-hmm. and they simply had not done the work. The pain was still so strong that it hadn't been released, so they basically had to go through as if they were a new participant and work it through, and that's what happened. And they did work it through after 5 or 7 years, and that made all the difference.
People can get stuck, right?
Oh, you can, yes.
And sometimes I think when our loved one does say to us, maybe after the 5 or 7 years, just move on. Yeah. I don't think they're doing it out of meanness.
No.
Sometimes they may look at the parent or the daughter or somebody and really would like to see them find some sense of happiness.
Exactly. Well, people have a distorted view sometimes of showing love for their lost loved one, and that is staying in a grief situation. They believe that's the way I'm showing my love, but I don't believe there's a single person that's left us on the other side that wants people to suffer like that. That's just crazy.
I agree. Yeah.
So they need to have permission to have joy in their life again, which is what a lot of people don't have.
And I think you can show certainly love for the person that has moved on, that has passed on,
sure.
By you moving on. Don't you agree?
That's the best way to show your love, is to make a life for yourself, to really enjoy the gift of life, and a lot of people don't see life as a gift who are bereaved, and that's
mm-hmm.
sad, so.
I came across a quote the other day, not the end of show quote. It says, the highest tribute to the dead is not grief, but gratitude.
Absolutely.
And isn't that just summarizes it perfectly?
It does.
Ken, would you kindly give your contact information?
Sure. My phone number is 902-431-2721. And my website is embracinggrief.ca.
And what about an email?
Oh, it's KTP, my initials, Kenneth Thomas Penrose, @eastlink.ca.
fabulous. Thank you very much. It's typically not one of those topics that people think, oh gosh, we got to talk about grieving, but it is good to talk about grieving.
And it's important.
Very
it's important to do the
important.
talking.
And thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun.
Excellent. Well, next week, our guest is going to be Denise Perrin, and we will be talking about rapid eye movement. And I would like to thank Body Talk Nova Scotia for their continued sponsorship. Now, if you'd like to reach Holly or I, you can do so through themagicofyou.ca. It's Holly at themagicofyou.ca or Krista at themagicofyou.ca. And you will note at our website, we have added the guest page. So if you want to go to anyone's website, the link is there for your convenience. Our shows are on iTunes and Facebook, and I would say that's it for this week. It's been a great show. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Ken. And our end of show quote. When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Author unknown. Until next week, remember, we all have the magic within us to create the reality we desire. Take care.
The Magic of You is a production of Voice Waves Atlantic.
The light's changing and the days are getting longer. Spring is almost here. It's time to come out of hibernation and enjoy the great outdoors. But if you suffer from allergies, you may not feel the same way. Did you know that Body Talk can help you live allergy-free? Body Talk involves a short series of sessions, usually about 6 to 8, with a follow-up a few months later, and you can live allergy-free. Your body becomes desensitized while restoring your immune response and overall health. Contact btns.ca today.